Hey Michelle, welcome to the Smash Your Saving podcast. I'm so pleased that you're here.
Barbara, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So I ask everybody this question. Where do you want to start today?
We can start at the beginning, we can start in the middle, we can talk about the future. But how about I tell you a little bit about what I'm up to right now,
Please,
and then we can
please,
take
that'd
it
be
from there.
great. Let's do it.
All right, excellent. Well, in January, I'll be launching my podcast, Live Your Extraordinary Life. And the purpose behind it is really to inspire people to step out of the routine, get off the autopilot, and start to really pursue their dreams. Life is really meant to be lived well. And I think so many people just sort of give up along the way and sort of just settle. And so this is about really getting off the autopilot, living life intentionally by design, not default, and starting to live that extraordinary life we're all meant to live.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. And yes, we're kindred spirits then. We're on the similar journey, which is amazing. So tell me where it began for you. Where did this passion for supporting other people to get off the autopilot and live their best life come from?
This is a really good story too. So I grew up in rural Maine. I had teenage parents, and I was at the end of a very large family. My grandmother and grandfather had 8 children, and I was at the very end of that very big Irish Catholic family. My dad was the baby of the eighth. But I grew up in this tiny little town, and most of my upbringing was focused on you got to get out of here. There's not enough for you here. We want you to do better than all of us did. And so it was a really achievement based, lots of achievements, lots of external achievements. And I did very well. I was very, very successful academically. I went on and did a lot of great things there. And then in my career, I was on a roller, just a nice ride, and it was all going well. I was by all means very successful. But lo and behold, I wasn't very happy. So I actually got a very sad phone call in 2005, in the summer of 2005. I was with my husband watching a movie, and my parents called and said, "Your grandmother's passed away. And we need you." I was in communications and public relations. That's my background. I do a lot of writing. They said, "We need you to start working on the eulogy." We expected that it would happen sometime soon. She was in her 90s, but very intact. And I remember sitting down to write her eulogy and thinking, my grandmother never went to college. She never had a fabulous career. She went through a lot of trauma. She lost 2 children, not one, but two, one to childhood disease, and then another one in the Korean War. And my grandfather became, as a result of these hardships, became a raging alcoholic. And yet my grandmother was one of the happiest, at peace people I had ever met. And being around her, I remember like my childhood, a little chaotic and stressful having teen parents, but my grandmother held the space. She was the person everyone wanted to be with. Like if I was at school and sick, I wanted to go home to stay at grandma's house. I wanted grandma to come get me. She just made everyone feel good. And it hit me like a ton of bricks when I went to get up to deliver the eulogy. Here's my grandmother in her 90s. Mind you, most of her siblings have passed. Most of her friends have passed. She was no longer living in our home state of Maine. She was living with one of my aunts in the southern part of the country. And yet, that church was packed. Packed. And I was like, who are these people? And who these people were people in her community going back 30 years, the children of her friends, the grandchildren of her friends, because she had had such a tremendous impact in her lifetime. And I sat there like moved by the fact that here was my grandmother who had not done any of those great things that I had been encouraged and pushed to do, and yet had lived this extraordinary life and was beloved and really was the epitome of happy. And that was very elusive for me. I had on paper all of the successes. I was everything that I had been told I should want to be. And yet I felt this incredible loneliness and void. And so that really became the moment of change for me of like, I've got to like learn from this. What do I do differently? And I had already been reading a lot of personal development books. Clearly something was amiss, but that became a hyperdrive moment. I'm like, that's it. I'm hiring a coach. I am not going to be just going on with this. This isn't working. I want more for myself. I want more for my future family. I was recently married. And one of the things before my grandmother died, we had all congregated in Maine. She had this fabulous going out party, if you will. She died the day she got back from visiting with all of us. Literally, like had gone up there, met with all of her children that were still alive, all of her grandchildren, all of the friends, her remaining siblings, had a wonderful 10-day vacation, flew home to Georgia where she was living, and died after eating her favorite meal peacefully and quickly. Like,
What a gift, right?
what a gift.
What a
And I
gift.
sat there going, I have been pushing boulders up hills my whole entire life. And this woman has just sort of moved with ease through the world, experienced so many difficult things, and yet always happy, always helpful, always kind, always, people always wanted to flock to be around her because she made you feel like she was giving you her undivided attention. And so, when I met up with her, it was all my siblings, so a brother and a sister, and we were all sitting on this boat with my grandmother on the lake where we grew up, and we were all with our respective spouses at the time. My brother was dating a young woman at the time, and she looked at my sister and I and our husbands, and she said, "I might not see you again. So you two get ready and start planning your families. You've gone through all this stuff. You guys are old enough now. I don't know what you're waiting for. Get on with it." And then looked at my brother and said, "And marry her already." And it was kind of like the laughing joke. I kid you not, within a year, both my sister and I were pregnant, and my brother got engaged.
Wow.
So she had a profound impact on all of us. Grandma said it mattered to
When
all of
she
us,
said
whether or
something,
not.
you did it, right?
Yeah, I
Incredible.
mean, we all kind of laughed about it, but clearly it hung deeply in the subconscious for all of us. And, for me, it really became a moment of really going inward and doing a lot of self-reflection and saying, what needs to change? And it was clear. One of the very first things that came up for me was I grew up, despite actually being in the same environment as my grandmother, with a lot of limiting beliefs. So for me, kind of coming into the world with teen parents who were just kind of starting out, were raising babies themselves, I inherited a lot of their belief system. So, life is hard. Work is meant to be hard. It's not meant to be fun. Work is meant to be hard. There is no safety net. Failure is not an option. All of these things where you think, oh, they encourage you to pick yourself up by your bootstrap, but they also hone you in and kind of confine you about what's actually possible in your life because you sit within these confines of, well, work's not meant to be fun. So it's okay if I don't enjoy what I'm doing. I'm getting paid well and I should be grateful.
Should be grateful.
I should be grateful. I have all of these, wonderful experiences. It's okay that I'm not happy because if I keep working hard, happiness will come. And that was the big elusive lie of my life of like, I worked really hard, long hours, long days in the library, academically, getting all of the degrees, winning all of the scholarships, getting the job, being promoted up the chain, and I still wasn't happy. So then as we started to really look at these belief systems and started to really chip at them and going, is that really true? Does that really hold true for me? Look at my grandmother. She didn't have any of this and didn't do any of this. And she had this fabulous life at the end. Didn't have a lot of money, but was incredibly happy. I mean, blissfully happy and enjoyed what she had. I had a lot more. And I had become very frugal because I remember not having. And so it sort of created this poverty mindset for me. Instead of saying, hey, I have more. I should go out and see more of the world. I should travel. I should do more. I had lived overseas in college. But when I got back, I stopped traveling. I have to save. I have to like build a nest egg, and I have to, afford a house, and then I have to do this. And I really put off doing things I enjoyed, thinking I have to wait until I deserve them. I don't know what that magic time was ever going to be, Barbara, or what that amount was ever going to be, but I was putting off things that brought me joy. And I
Mm.
just kept sinking myself into the work, saying if I work harder and if I get higher up, then I'll be more successful and then I'll be happy. And it really wasn't panning out. So that working with a coach and really pushing back on some of those limiting beliefs, which I was stubborn on, I would argue with my coach, which is not what I would advise anyone to do. Really, you're there, like, listen, right? Try to listen. And it took a while for me to say, I remember the first time you said, what would you rather be doing? And what would it look like? And I was almost like, well, what does it matter? I can't have it. And he was like, wow, we have a lot of work to do. And he said, no, but just suspend disbelief. If you could, what would you have? So I sat down, I did the assignment because I'm a dutiful student, and I wrote down word for word what I wanted. And at that time, if we're going back nearly 20 years, there was no remote work. Everybody had to go into an office. I worked, it wasn't 9 to 5, it was more like 8 to 8 and weekends, and I commuted and all of this sort of thing. But I wrote down that I would like to start having more freedom of time to work on things that I enjoyed on myself, do more of my writing. I wanted to have the ability to work from home. Lo and behold, I became one of the very first people in corporate America that had an executive job, that when I had a baby, I said, hey, I'm coming back full time, but I'm going to work from home a few days a week. It gives me a couple extra hours in my day of not commuting that will allow me to just breathe and be more productive for you.
Mhm.
And I was expecting a big fat no. And instead, lo and behold, they said, do it. Let's see how it works. And it was very successful. And then that became the norm in my company. We went from nobody ever being able to do that because no one had asked to, okay, this is possible. And then that was it. Like all bets were off. I was like, well, hey, something we all thought would never be possible. We'd always be commuting and I'd always have to be here. And now I have this new experience of if you ask, sometimes it might actually come to fruition. Well, what else do I want? Let me work on this. And so little by little, all of those things that I actually put out in the universe were starting to happen. And so fast and forward, I mean, I was writing down goals and they were happening quicker than I could write the next goal. I would say with my husband, okay, well, if we can jointly, work on earning this amount, then let's take some money and put it aside and go on a trip. Because we'd never traveled. We both felt like, we had student loans and this and that, and we didn't have a house yet. So little by little, all of these goals that we wanted to hit, the promotion, a little bit more flexibility in our jobs, the experience of traveling started to happen again. And then it became a lifestyle. It was like, well, it's not that we're just doing this because we deserve it, because we work hard, but this is who we are. This is our life. And I come back so renewed from traveling, just a change of scenery and new people and new food and the language, that I come back and I'm so much more productive, that then that became part of the norm. People knew I was going to travel, and I would feel like, what is the maximum amount of time off? I used to pride myself on not taking time off.
Mhm.
And then I began to pride myself on, I'm maximizing. How much more do we get? And guess what? I'm going to use every last bit, and then I'm going to push the envelope and see what else we can do. Because I knew that nothing was going to change unless I pushed for the change. And so, fast forward, not quite 20 years, my life has transformed tremendously. I'm still in the corporate world, but I've sort of rewritten the rules of what that looks like. Everyone knows that I spend a lot of time working with people. So I actually spend a lot of time with our clients. A lot of them are CEOs or executives, coaching them, getting them ready for interviews, helping them, quite frankly, work on things that they need to work on personally so that they can have better lives in their work environment. And then I work with a lot of our executives and rising executives within the agency that I work. Again, a lot of it is confidence building, learning how to ask for what you want, learning how to say no when it doesn't fit. It's not part of your authenticity. I think there's this belief that in the work world, you're supposed to just be quiet and do what you're told, right? That's the way it is, particularly in a corporate environment. And I will tell you, it's evolving, and even more quickly now, I think, now that we've gone through this whole pandemic experience than ever before. There had been ongoing evolution, and then we went through warp speed during the pandemic. And now the things that we never could have imagined possible a decade ago even are norms. They're norms. You want to work from home? Of course, we'll figure it out. We've got equipment and technology will enable it. You don't want to work this many hours? Well, let's create a more flexible work environment for you and hours that work to allow you to go do these other things that you enjoy, that will allow you to bring your best self to the work world. No one was having these conversations before. There was never this conversation in that kind of environment around who are you and how do we bring the best out of you, not how do you fit with it. It used to be how do you fit within what we need.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, I can completely relate. I love everything that you've just said, Michelle. It just lights me up from the inside out. I've got a corporate background as well. And you're so right, going back 20 years, we wouldn't have been working from home. It wouldn't have been on the table. We didn't even comprehend that was such a thing. Maybe we did it once in a blue moon, if you had somebody coming around, a delivery guy or something.
Delivering something, or if you were sick, you were
or
allowed
if you
to
were
work
sick.
from home.
Absolutely. If you were sick, that's it. But certainly not on a consistent, regular basis. It just wasn't a thing. But I just want to rewind to the beginning of your story, because something you said really kind of struck a chord with me. And that was, you said, obviously you were looking at your grandmother's life and grieving and just inspecting it and analysing what was going on and looking at it in a different way, I guess, just because of you were looking through a different lens.
Yes.
You said, I want more. And this is something I hear so often from my clients, from the amazing people that I work with. And I've been in that place, I know what wanting more feels like, but so often we're conditioned, aren't we, that more is achievement based. It is either more money or a bigger house or a bigger car or whatever it might be, I want a promotion or, I just want more things. And but there comes a time when that's not what more's about anymore. It's about, I want to fill a hole in my heart, in my soul. And this is what it sounds like your grandmother had. She figured that out, didn't she? She knew what that was about.
There's a well-known theory that the smarter or more educated you are, the harder it is to learn some of these simple life lessons. Mm-hmm. And I certainly think that was the case for me. Excuse me. Where, the harder I worked and the more educated I became, the less open I was to new possibilities. Where I think my grandmother was just like, peace is important. Foundationally, peace is important. I was willing to sacrifice peace and, quite frankly, physical health and mental well-being for achievement, because I thought achievement would make me happy. And I'm young, I can work really hard, and it's okay if I don't get enough sleep or exercise for a while. I'll catch back up. But it actually really wears you down quickly.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. And we do tell ourselves all of these things, don't we? Oh, I can catch up, or I don't need that. That's just the way it is. It'll be fine. I'll just do it this one time. And this one time is just the first time usually, isn't it? And then the first of many. And I had my light bulb moment, if you like, after I went on maternity leave with my youngest daughter. And I'd not had, this was my third child, I'd not had maternity leave properly. You know, I had a full year off at this point. I'd never had that before. And in that full year, I realized that there was a world out there. There was, and I felt peace and I felt freedom and contentment and happiness and things that I'd overlooked before. And that was the catalyst for me going, I'm not willing to go back there. And I did for I think I went back for just short of a year, just to, because, you know, to get back into the swing of things. Oh, I thought, oh, this is just my maternity leave kind of brain. And I realized actually this wasn't going anywhere. And I left so quickly to start my first business. But that was my moment of this more that we're all looking for, this itch, this yearning, this whisper that we've got. It's much bigger than achievement or the next step. It's just a gap that we need to fill. So I'd love to explore that, because I think that's so important. And the other thing that I'd love to explore, which is vital, especially for us as women, is asking for what we want. Being able to ask. Oh, isn't it? I had this conversation with a couple of my girlfriends just this week, actually, because I asked for what I wanted, and they saw it it was in a conversation that we're having with other people, and like, how did you do that? How did that happen? And we had a lovely conversation about it. But this is something I think that we need to learn. We need to give ourselves permission to do. It's not that we need to learn how to do it. We need to give ourselves permission to do and allow ourselves to do it. So if you're up for it, let's just dive into.
Oh, let's do it.
Let's talk about how to ask for what you want, but also how to get that more that we're after, that we really need. You know, whatever that might be. Yeah, how to fill that gaping hole that we might have. Because we're good at putting ourselves, and when I say we, I'm generalizing hugely, but I'm talking to women now.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm talking to women because we're really, really good at putting ourselves at the bottom of our own pecking order, aren't we? And everything else comes first, whether that's our work, our career, our spouse, our partner, our children, everything else comes before us. And this is where the more can get diluted and forgotten.
Yeah, it's so important because I do think there is this societal, like historically speaking, conditioning of like to be a good woman, to be a good wife, mother, daughter, friend. There's this level of self-sacrifice that and piety that we all bring. Work hard, give more, humble, and being willing to deny yourself. Somehow that became a norm versus fill your cup up first so that you have something to pour from, right?
Yes.
And I do think there's been a little bit of resistance, as you know, it certainly hasn't been smooth sailing for us all, but I do think we have pioneered this path that now, certainly the generation that we're raising has a completely different trajectory. Possibilities are endless, and their language and their lingo are just different, which is beautiful to see. Because having gone through all of this, I do think one of the most probably chafing moments for me came when I have a good friend. He was having babies at the same time I was, and things seemed to come very effortlessly for her. And I was still working so hard. And I remember thinking, what am I doing wrong? And here was the big aha for me. She actually worked less, was more at peace, going back to that feeling I got very clear after my grandmother's death. Like, this was a woman that clung to peace as her MO. And this friend was very similar. Her downtime was something she really preserved. There was an art to it. And she happens that she's actually, her family is from overseas. And so I think there was just a little bit more of a mindset of the importance of relaxation and downtime and family time. And interestingly enough, even though working with a coach, I'd identified that time with friends and family were a premium, important value for me. I was actually spending very precious little time on that.
Mm,
I was still in this, but I have to work harder, and old mindsets. And I remember her saying to me, "You work much too hard." And she's like, "The reason why it looks easier for me than it is for you is because you're striving rather than receiving." And I
yeah,
remember going, wow, that's powerful. She's absolutely right. I'm reaching outside of myself, climbing, 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 and she's sitting back and letting it flow in. And
yeah,
that was like, well, I need to learn this. Like, how do I learn this? And I think one of the most profound spiritual writers for me was Wayne Dyer,
yeah,
because it was right about the time he was starting to really get out of the original set of books from his psychology background, where he had written the erroneous zones, and he came back with a proposal of, I actually don't want to write about sex. I want to write about spirituality. And they were like, what? And he started writing his books. And I don't even know that it was one of the bigger sellers, but one of the ones that made the most impact on me was You'll See It When You Believe It,
yes.
which is the converse of the saying that we used to say, I'll believe it when I see it.
Mhm.
And that was, I kept thinking, I think I got the title wrong. And, I'm reading the book and I was like, wow, it really starts with a mindset and it really starts with intention.
Absolutely. It all starts with intention. I was talking about this just today, which is quite, I love it when things kind of join up in your day. It's so cool. But you're absolutely right. It's just flipping that switch and changing your intention and prioritizing what's important. And something that you said really landed with me in terms of what your friend was doing. She was receiving, and again, I think as women, we're not brilliant at receiving, whether it's compliments or we're not great at, we're great at giving but not great at receiving, and it's such a good skill to learn. And I remember when my youngest was, oh, she was starting to talk, and she was knowing her own mind at at that age. I think she was about 2 or 3, and she came out with, "I need some me time. I need some me time."
Oh,
And this is stuck now in our family, because it was such a gift for all of us, because now we all kind of adopted that phrase, and whenever we needed to kind of just retreat and escape for just a minute, however long that might have been, we gave ourselves permission to have that me time.
oh,
And this is,
beautiful.
and I wish I'd learnt that earlier. I don't know where she got it from. I don't know where it landed from, but it was such a gift for all of us, especially as I live with a family of introverts. Me time is super important. We don't always give ourselves permission to do that. And your
Right.
friend was actually right, where we can get into that trap of just striving, striving, striving. And there's nothing wrong with that in terms of achieving and, having aspirations and ambition, because I'm an ambitious person, and you're
Absolutely.
ambitious, but it's recognizing that duality and knowing that we can still do that, but also to protect ourselves and our bubble. That doesn't have to come as a cost. That doesn't have to be the cost
I,
of it.
I think that's so important to stress to your listeners, because one of the things that I used to do, and this is the wrong mindset, but it would be things like, okay, I worked really hard this week. I'm going to allow myself to go get my nails done because I deserve it because I worked hard. Whereas my friend would have said, I'm going to go get my nails done because it's part of my lifestyle of making me feel good while I have to work and do all the things. And it's just this degrees of change. It's not even a huge shift, but a small degree of we're doing the same things, but with a different mindset about those things.
Mhm.
And the whole concept of self care, right, which is now part of our vernacular and we all know what it means, is still fairly new, 15 years ago. Self care, you'd be like, well, you sleep when the baby sleeps, or, that sort of thing, versus, and I didn't, want to take money away from the family for me. Now I have a very different philosophy. And I work with people about, if you want to have money in your life, you have to let go of the notion that there's an unlimited amount coming your way. Spend the money on your nails. I'm not saying drain your bank account and be irresponsible, but there is something to be said on spending money responsibly on things that make you happy so that you're operating from a place of joy so that you can be on the frequency and the vibration that you need to be in order to bring into the light in your life the things and more importantly experiences you want to have.
Yes.
I mean, that's such a key concept that I think a lot of people still struggle with. This idea that I can complain about a situation or I can be frustrated with a situation and still expect things to change.
Mm,
Possibly they will, but you'll be grinding out a long time because you're on the wrong frequency. You're not on the right frequency for that which you want to bring in. So I always say you can be upset about something not going your way or going harder than you think, but don't stay there. You know, low frequencies, you can manifest for sure. You can bring things into your life. You can have experiences you want, but it's going to be 3 times as hard, if not harder. It's going to take longer. It's not going to be in the way you think. It's not going to feel the way you want or you expected that to feel because you're going to be exhausted trying to bring it up to fruition versus again going up to this higher level, operating from a place of joy, even though you don't have it yet. Before you have it, going back to this concept, when you believe it deeply, when you have that intention and you can envision it, then it's going to come to be.
so true. This is where gratitude really does come into its own, isn't it? Because so often people say to me, but how do I get to that frequency? How do I kind of latch onto it? How do I connect with it when I'm not seeing it? You know, how do I start believing in it and raise my frequency, raise my vibration when I'm not there yet? And the best place to start, and I'd love to hear what you think, is always going back to gratitude and celebration. Gratitude and celebration, because they're both on the same vibration, is just, it brings everything to play, doesn't it? That's
It
where the
really
magic,
does.
yeah.
I mean, I think for me, this is like going back to child's play, you know, thinking about your youngest. Like, I really think when we were children, we're really good at this, right? We're really good at make believe and
Yeah.
pretend. We don't have any gumption or qualms about the fact that we're not really doctors when we play doctor, and we're not really, you know, in a kitchen when we have a make believe kitchen. We just believe all of it, and we suspend disbelief, and we're in that play state. And it really is. Think back to that time. I love it now. For me, it's part of like the most fun part of my day and my week, right?
Me too, me too. I have so much joy just pretending in my head and acting as if, and just,
Acting as if
yeah,
is huge. You know,
yeah,
and I also say, like, look, I'm all for being comfortable and being relaxed in your state of mind, but there is something to be said that if, you know, for example, I'm a big connoisseur of, I just really enjoy travel. So I talked about this. I also really like clothes and jewelry. You know, I'm kind of a girly girl on that front, but I also like downtime. One of the things that's been very interesting for me is yes, you'll find me in the weekend hair in a ponytail and sweats on. But when I am going out into the world, I dress up. Even if I'm
yeah,
just at the grocery store.
mhm,
Might
yeah,
not have had time for a shower yet, but I'll look good nevertheless.
yeah,
Even if I'm just going to the grocery store and I'm like, why are you bothering? I said, because this is the me this is who I want to be in the world. And this is how I want to feel. I want to feel good when I operate in the world, when I walk out there. And when I feel good, I know good things are coming. And when I know good things are coming and I am grateful for what I already have, I'm in a very powerful state.
absolutely. It is very much up leveling before you up level. It's deciding what your next version of you is going to be like, you know, show up like, feel like, and just deciding to operate at that level, even if you're not there yet. It's absolutely
Absolutely.
beforehand. So I'm very conscious of time, because we could talk forever. I think I'm certainly getting that. I'm comfy. I've got a cup of tea. I could talk forever, but we got to wrap it up. So let's have a think about some practical things that we can use as takeaways. So what do you reckon if we're going to pick just one or two things that if you did nothing else as a result of our conversation today, you know, after listening to our conversation, what would it be that we would like to share that just do this and just watch for the results? What do you reckon?
Well, we're on the cusp of a new year, right? And what we want to be able to do is start our new year with our intention. And I think it's such an important, for me, it's a tradition and a habit I spend with my family at the beginning of the year of really looking at what we want to experience, down to the birthday parties, down to the travel, down to not just all of the goals around school for my children or work for me, but to really set what is it that we want this year to be about. And I think when you put it out in the universe, you write it down, you're clear on it, and you really mull it over. Writing something like that down is incredibly powerful because now it's out there.
Mhm.
That's to me the starting point of bringing in change, bringing in new experiences, up leveling your life. It's a starting point. And so I always say, start there. That's the beginning.
It's so good. So good. I've really enjoyed it, Michelle, just hanging out with you today. Do you have a book that you would like to recommend, or is there any book that you think that I've read this, or I've listened to it and it's actually had an impact? I know you mentioned Wayne Dyer, but is there anything that you think, oh, do you know what? Go away and read this. Tuck into this. This is a great.
Well, I'm a big Wayne Dyer fan, so any of his stuff, Manifest Your Destiny, Pull Your Own Strings, all of those are good things, and they're oldies but goodies. But you know, it was recently the anniversary year, and I can't remember, it's the 25th anniversary, it might be, of The Alchemist by
Mm,
Paulo Coelho, and I
so
have to
good.
say I've read it. If I probably have read it a dozen times, and
Yeah.
it's always something to go back, reminding us the inner journey is as important as the exterior journey. So the external journey we're on. So again, this is a nice reminder. We're at this place and time and year. Go inside. Spend
No,
time with yourself.
check in, lean in. Ah, nice full circle book there. Lovely. Where can people find you, Michelle?
Please come and find me on Instagram at Michelle Rios one, or if you would like, go on to podcasts wherever you listen to your podcasts and come and check out Live Your Extraordinary Life. We'd
Amazing.
love to have you come and listen
Amazing. And that launches
in January, right after the new year.
January. So if you're listening in real time, it will have launched already. So go and listen. It's amazing.
Listen,
I'm
it'll
so
be up.
excited. It's going to be up. I've loved every second of our conversation today, Michelle. Thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.